And away we go.
All right. Uh, Thank you, everybody, for coming to this talk, which is my first mistake was wanting to teach or how to roll your own InfoSec training. Um, this is going to go a little bit into a lot of things that you probably never thought about when or if you are considering doing your own training. I am Sean Townsend. I also go by Mobius online. And with me is the wonderful blind hacker.
Howdy, Joe B, blind hacker. So I think we've got some objectives and some quick things that we want to talk to you guys about during this. Like you said, this is both Mobius and my experience on making the mistake of wanting to teach and where we've gone, where we've both diverged, but ultimately have done a lot of similar research on how to do this. And it's going to cover things such as Papers, Please, where we talk about businesses and licensing. What this is, what the talk is about, business branding, bits and bits and bobs, uh, tech, cash, and other stacks. The environments that you got to worry about, your recording setup, and teaching the teachers, and then we'll wrap up.
Right on. So a little bit about us. I have been doing malware analysis and reverse engineering now for a little over 5 years. I am trying to grow myself in the InfoSec space as somebody who does mentoring and leadership, because I feel like there's not nearly enough leadership in the space. And I really think that a change in that would dramatically help a lot of people. But I will try to provide that on pretty much any topic. Obviously, my main focus is malware and malware accessories, but anything to your liking. I am a Army vet, military intelligence. I was in OIF 3 in Baghdad back in 2005. I am the owner of Mobius Malware Analysis, and I am a principal cyber intelligence researcher at Anomali Inc.
I'm Joe B, the blind hacker. I'm a big mentor, and that's what I met Mobius. He came in and he started learning and saying some wild things that he wanted to teach, and ultimately, I guess without being presumptuous, I guess I could say I'm the mentor's mentor. So if it all goes horribly awry, blame me. Um, as if you know me, I do a lot of stuff. I'm a big advocate for jobs, for yourself, for education. And so when Mobius approached me about all these things, this was like this is our joint experience. However, I have a bit of a fluttered background. I'm more of an offset guy these days. I've done defense in the past, and with for the most part these days, my job title is Director of Innovation Research and Director of Innovation, Research and Advanced Testing at OnDefend, developing a really cool product out there. If you guys are interested in ransomware and reversing malware, you might, not really. I make malware, but it's always worth a check out.
Right on. All right. So what does this talk about? Essentially, it's creating your own training from the ground up, right? There's a lot of stuff out there in terms of courses and classes that somebody will say, okay, we're going to go through the entirety of this book, or we have a college course that we're going to go over, and it's pulled from a variety of things. But my course is not structured off of anything formal beyond my experience in the industry, the things that I had to learn the hard way, drinking from the fire hose pretty much daily for years. And things that aren't really covered so much in books or other classes that I have taken. I want to, well, we want to, kind of push that this is an awesome thing. Just know that it is so much more work than you think it's going to be. It is so much more work. And because it's so much more work, Blind here advocates that you steal everything, not really in terms of content, but methods to make your life easier and to, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Kind of a mentality when you're looking at tools or layouts or things like that. And just to talk about things that have been learned over the last 6 months, because I am currently about to wrap up my second round of beta testing with my second class. And so there's been a lot of things that have been covered, on both of our ends. So.
Yeah, and I'll just to be very clear, when I say steal everything, it's one of those mantras of if there's a methodology or if you see someone doing it right, there's no point in ultimately reinventing the wheel. There's a point of looking at how to do this and following a blueprint, a methodology, and again, at your leisure, take what is good, leave what is bad for the most part. And then we get to this part. So this was I remember you came to me and asked me, hey, I really want to teach, and I looked at you and I said, hey, well, do you want it to be a business? Do you want to be a teacher? Do you want to be a mentor? What do you want to do? And you said, well, it'd be nice if I could make this a second income, if I could make some money, but also still do my best to give back. I don't remember those were your exact words, but I remember that was the gist of our conversation there. And I was like, well, guess what? Gonna need to start a business.
Yeah, it's pretty close to what it is from what I remember. Yeah, and I got to tell you, for anybody that has not done anything like this, setting up a business is the easiest thing that you will do. It is the easiest thing. It will take you 10 minutes and about $150.
Yep.
That's it. As you got to fill out, there's a few forms on your state's
SBA.gov.
Yeah, SBA.gov will do it. I went through my state's Department of Revenue, I believe, or one of the state-run sites, and you just have to declare the name of your company, what you're going to do, how many employees, and then pay a fee, and that's it. It is by far the easiest thing that you will do, but it is also one of the best things that you can do because at that point you have some coverage. And
it provides you a serious layer of protection, especially when you're teaching the things you can teach in our industry, right?
Right. Yeah, and definitely when it comes to, sometimes you will have folks who won't listen and they may end up harming their systems or somebody else's system. And so it's good to have some protection there. To an extent, it will protect your work, although you usually need something a little bit more in depth, when it comes to that. If you are going to be charging, you need to be putting aside money for taxes. Because you can't just take in income, especially, I'm still not even charging yet, but if you're going to be taking in, I don't know, one of the larger organizations, thousands upon thousands of dollars per course, the IRS is going to notice something is awry. And they like to go after little guys much more than they like to go after bigger guys. So it's a really good thing to have that set up for taxes and also your ability to write things off, because at the outset and for a considerable amount of time until you're bringing in income, you're going to be spending your own money on this.
Yep.
And you will be spending much more than you think. All right. but yeah, and then copyright and whatnot, like that's a whole separate issue. But if you really want to protect your work, you want to copyright it, because there is a lot of theft, and things we'll talk about it in a little bit. But yeah, that is something to look into, and it's something that you might not think about at the outset, right?
Absolutely. It's definitely you protect yourself, you protect your work, and again, you're doing things right. And like you said, when the IRS notices if money's coming in, it can be an adventure if you're not doing it right. And they will quickly inform you you're not doing it right with large amounts of fees and fines.
Yeah, that's not a fun endeavor to go through. So you're going to start a company. Awesome. Where do you start? You don't know. Like, what do you want it to be? What do you want it to look like? What do you want your core audience to be? What is your aim and overall goal? For me, I wanted to break out of my imposter syndrome and teach people, because I had a realization that I really wanted to teach somebody. And it was because I had had several folks over the years ask me if I could show them what I did. And then for one reason or another, they flaked out. And I was really bummed. Like, it was super disappointing that I couldn't share, because I don't ever really get to talk about this stuff with people. You get that kind of deer in the headlights look, and nobody really gets it, especially if you're not in the infosec industry. So,
Yep.
um, you know, really figure out your aim first, to some extent. It's going to cost a little bit of money to get started with that. But if you're on a budget, for things like logos and kind of basic design, go on Fiverr. Ask around your friends, see who's an artist. There are more than a few infosec, well-known infosec folks who do artwork of one kind or another. They will do logo design. They will do stickers.
Yep.
It's really good to make connections and ask around, which is one of the bottom point is to find a community of people that have similar interests, if you're not already involved in one, and start talking about things. Start talking about what you want to do and what you want to build and how you want it to look. And I guarantee you, they either can do it or they know somebody who can.
I think that was a big help for you. It's a big help for me.
Mm-hmm.
I built my brand several years ago, being the blind hacker. I got a logo made. I went to professional. I then built, I started streaming. I built a community. I was out there advertising for myself. I was going to dead Slacks. I was going to, other Discords, gamer Discords, because when I was doing this, there wasn't really InfoSec Discords. I was going to all these places and I was like, hey, come check me out, and built a brand of hey, I'm streaming all the time. I'm giving out CTS. I'm doing a bunch of offensive stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
then if you know the story behind Dead Pixel, within 6 months, I was like, hey, this is no longer about me. It's about this community that's built up around me, and this is where the importance of community comes from. Where I said, hey, because this is no longer about me, we built Dead Pixel Sec. We had kind of rudimentary branding for a long time, and then as the community came together, we built this. Now Dead Pixel Sec brand. So now you can go to discord.gg/Dead Pixel Sec and you can jump in. We've got logos, we've got t-shirts, we got things. And although, while that's not an important thing for your teaching, that's not an important thing for that, it does bring branding, brings recognition. So when people now see the Mobius M, as we're calling them, the malware M, you
Yeah.
go, oh, that's something he's done. That's his product. And those are actually important things to have, because as far as
Yes.
brand recognition goes, especially when you're turning into a business, that M is part of your income.
Yeah.
That's why Pepsi changes their logo, Coke changes their logos. They get hip every couple of decades. They do these things. And so
Mm-hmm.
when you find your target audience and you figure it out, and then you figure out what they like, you bring your targeting, your branding, and then you make your first $100. I'm just throwing random number out there. You make your first $100 off of word of mouth. your word, somebody else's word. You make your first dollar off of word of mouth, and that M now stands for your word of mouth, and you want that to be a positive impact. And so that's, while
I agree.
yes, probably not the most important thing you could be doing. There are other things. You've got to make sure your content is good, but having your brand represent who you are and what you're doing, to me, highly important, because I will respect a brand and I will respect individuals who support and back that brand.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very, very on point. And that's something that, as I started this out, I said, I have the means and the ability to make this look professional from the start. So I think the first thing I did was I plunked down a couple $100 to have a logo made, and get some animations done. And then I bought a very nice camera, which, I'm usually the crispest one on any given stream, because I've got like a $1,400 camera. I got a nice mic. I've been soundproofing my office. I have, I've tried to do a lot of things to make this look and feel professional from the start, because I know that if I could start out that way, that people will have more draw to it, and they'll be like, oh, this isn't just ragtag and thrown together. This is
Yep.
something that is being taken like really seriously. And not to diminish anyone's work, like if you don't have the budget, not everybody does,
Yeah.
especially if you're just starting out. But if you can, you should, because that it really does help push recognition and professionalism.
Yeah. The worst thing you want is to have a scratchy mic or a blurry camera or a computer that's rebooting every 10 minutes during a class. And I've been on streams where my systems weren't functioning well. And again, taking the different approach. You went business, I kind of went hobbyist. I threw my stuff together. And while we both have brands, again, the professional brand that you're going to want to pay to go learn malware, Mobius, the guy that if it's a Tuesday night and you're bored and he's streaming and you go watch, that's the blind hacker, right? So there's key differences with the way we started. My stuff was definitely ragtag. There was not much of this going on, and then, hey, why don't we turn this professional? This is the way to do it. And through Mobius using my failures and successes has had more success doing those things.
Yeah, at least I'm trying to. So a part of this is that when you're creating your content, one of the things is that you want a place that people can go to easily find your work, i.e. a website. They're not as easy as you think if you've never been in that space before. A lot of people, myself included, have had jokes about people who do web design. And one of the things that I had is when I first started, I was like, oh, I'll just build the site myself. I've already got Squarespace. I could probably integrate like all these moving pieces I'm not even quite sure of, but I could probably just put it all into there, right? Because you would think, well, that's a really good way to put it out there, and everybody has a website, and it's fine. It's but you got to think about like how people are going to access it, how people are going to pay for it, how people are going to see things like once they're on the site. Are you going to have a members only area? Are you going to have your video hosting or your videos hosted on your website? Like, what are these things that you are going to need to do? Most people just think it's super easy and I can just build it myself. So here's your first problem, in that you are probably going to want your site to look really nice. And there are a lot of pre-built templates out there, and there are a lot of things that you can just kind of slap together and it looks good. The problem is that when you start doing all of the things required, and like like I was just talking about, you're going to start running into a lot of different holdups. There's going to be a lot of snags.
Yep.
So, first of all, for the mains that I started at for Squarespace and looking at Wix and WordPress, you have your monthly fees, right? They can be kind of expensive to really expensive. If you are charging for things, well, guess what? You're going to have to do a transaction fee through the site on top of the processor fee through whoever you go through. So if that's Stripe, if that's PayPal, whatever the case may be, you're going to have an additional amount cut off the top immediately. And you might not think that, 7% of a transaction fee is that much until you realize that that is, across the board. And then on top of the 2.9% plus 30 cents, which is what most processors take. So you're looking at almost 10% of every purchase gone. Like you don't even see it.
So when you're charging $100 a course, that's immediately, oh, your total income is going to be $90 per course now.
Yeah, and that's
boom.
And that's just from that. Like that's not anything else. Because there are a lot of other fees and things that are hidden that you don't think about. And this is just, keep in mind, this is just for the website, right? Another thing is that if you have members only areas, well, for something like Squarespace, you can have them, but in order to do that, you have to be on their highest tier of subscription at the outset. And then you have to pay an additional subscription fee, which has 3 different tiers. And the first tier only gives you one singular page that is a members page. So if you have multiple trainings, you're stuck there. If you want your content and your videos on separate pages, guess what? You can't do that. Nope. And you have a limit of 10 pages that are members only. So you're paying an extra $40 a month on top of the $54 a month. So that's almost $100 a month just for that.
So then your $100 course per, if you have 10 students, an additional $100 period a month gone.
Yeah.
Day one.
Yeah. From the start, welcome. So these, and again, like they all have limits. They have limits on, the plugins that you can use. They have limits on the transactions you can make. Some like Wix allows for, I think, 500 transactions a month max. So if you have a really popular site and you have like video content, they only allow 500 transactions. And then you get hit with additional penalties and other things. And that's with their top tier subscription service. And WordPress, they have, a lot of ease, but then they also have their own section of
yeah. Which
everything.
Plugins are you using? Is that the right plugin? Is the content safe? Oh,
yeah. There's a reason that, you have entire sections of Kali Linux dedicated to WordPress. So the vulns are free, but everything else will cost you. So yeah, you're looking at this, right? And these are things that you need to think about as you're going through. Whoop. Another thing to think about is that you are going to have to build all of this out while you're making your content. And if you're making any in-depth content, I promise you, this is going to suck all of your time, all of it. And if you have a family, you've got kids, you have a full-time job, it is going to take all of your time. And that's if you know what you're doing. Like me, I'm not a web dev. I don't know how to do that. So I went out and hired somebody after I had a moment of, I want to teach people malware analysis and reverse engineering, but I have to figure out how to make this button work first. I had that I had that conversation, and I was like, I'm just going to pay somebody. I'm going to pay somebody to do it because my time has to go elsewhere.
Yep.
And you really have to put a priority on your time versus what you think you can do yourself. I guarantee it's far easier to just pay for somebody who knows what they're doing to do it than for you to be like, I could just do it myself.
Definitely. There's when you're like you said, when you're there's content development time, there's content production time,
Yep.
and then there's content editing. Like, it's this I've kind of started to equate it when speaking to other people now. Like, essentially you're a director, you're the film crew, you're the producer, that you're the advertising company. You don't have Warner Brothers logos behind you. You have Mobius logos behind you. You have Dead Pixel logos behind you. You have Blind Hacker logos behind you. And when you're responsible for keeping that up, developing content, curating it, making sure that it makes sense, making sure that it's accurate, making sure that it's not it's not other people haven't used that exact same content, and if they have, you got to give them credit.
Yep.
And then by the time you get done with all that, and then you're like, I want to sit down. I told you I went through the conundrum of, should I just use a smart website? Should I use my self-hosted? Should I use a smart website? And we'll get to that slide next. And these I shouldn't say smart, a already kind of pre-built teaching website.
Right.
And then you go, oh, okay, finally I've got content done, and now this.
Yeah. So this was one of the first points brought up to me when I was talking about developing my content and if I should have a website and looking through all of that. A lot of people will say, oh, well, why don't you just go through Udemy? Or why don't you go through Pluralsight? Why don't you go through, whoever? Well, there are a couple of caveats that I didn't know before I started getting into this. What is required for all of those?
Mm-hmm.
So, first of all, of the four mains that I looked at, you own it to an extent, or you don't at all. So in the instance of like Pluralsight, when you create it for them, you can't put it anywhere else. The same with LinkedIn Learning. It belongs to them, and there are provisions in place that you cannot make the content of the same kind in the same way to the same audience anywhere else. Like, they own it. So you can only go through them for that particular topic ad infinitum. It's always going to be through them. So you are essentially giving them ownership of your content, right? Yep. For something like Teachable and Udemy, you do own your content, but there are limitations. Udemy has the limitation of you can only change your content within a certain time frame. And Teachable has the catch of you are paying them to host your content. So it's there, but you can be paying anywhere from $39 to $300 a month. And so it's a trade-off, right? Pluralsight, LinkedIn, you have to audition to have your content on their platforms. And I believe LinkedIn Learning, you're actually a contractor, which is that process. You submit your content and they may or may not even see it. There's no guarantee that your content will be looked at. And then if you are brought on, you're basically a contractor. And in the same vein as Pluralsight, you have to have your content signed off on by a content manager. So you may have a vision for what you want to teach or what you want to do, and they may just completely nix that off the bat. So, there are these caveats that you need to consider before you try to submit your training through them as platforms, right? And then you look at the revenue. Right? Most of these do not give you just they paid money, you get the money. It's not how it works. For Pluralsight and LinkedIn, you have royalties.
Yep.
Right. And the majority of the time, it's what traffic you're generating to the site or to your specific videos. If you have content that drives a lot of viewers, you get paid more. If you don't, you get paid less. Pluralsight does it on view time. If your videos, somebody only spends, 5 minutes out of an hour, which most of the videos can't be that long, and they have a threshold on how long your content can be, you get paid less. For Teachable, you get your net minus transaction and processing fees, and there's something else depending on the level that you pay, and then you get that money. Udemy, you get a profit share, and depending on how the user finds your content, accesses your content, and pays for your content, will determine how much you get out of that profit sharing. But at a base, you get 37% of any particular sale to your content. And that's it. The majority of the time, they will take out taxes if you apply to their promotional. They have a promotional program to where they will actually advertise for you. They will take that out of your payment. So you may only end up with 30% of profit for anything that you make. And Udemy stuff is not only on sale all the time and super cheap, but Udemy has also had a problem of content theft by reselling. So you may not even be able to make as much money as you would, because somebody has taken your content, re-uploaded it, and sold it as their own.
So there's actually reasons a lot of for these things, right? So just to go over quickly, like Pluralsight and LinkedIn, right? They're kind of like in a manner hiring you. You produce content for them. That's why you lose ownership of it, right? So the royalties and things like that. And by the way, that's an entirely different tax scenario. I've run into that with places that I've taught in the past that have my training over there, and I it's really nice to randomly get these randomly royalty checks, but then on that view time and popularity, hey, if they're not pushing my content, then also I'm not getting it. But then yes, I can go push my content, but then when a lot of these places like LinkedIn Learning and Pluralsight, they now have a pass, right? This pass, and as you said, if there's it's based on length of time and other things, and that pass now goes to a big pile of money, and then they pay it out just to the people who are essentially getting the views. Now, you create Teachable, that's your website, your content. You have to, again, you're going to be spending time building that. And as you see the prices there, they vary largely per month. And I don't even know if the 299 is their max plan. I think there's a enterprise that's closer to like 1200 a month.
There is.
Yeah. And so, and then like you said, minus tax and processing. Well, processing, as we've talked, another 10% off that. Tax, they will collect the tax, and if you opt in for things like that. If not, it comes down to you as the business owner to do things. And so you're immediately, again, we're going back to our $100 per student, and you're like, oh, I'm already losing it. Well, apparently the trick I've learned about Udemy is the reason you see them on promo all the time is when you do a promo and Udemy's like, hey, it's promo season, throw up a promo, they give you more of the percentage of your profit.
Yes.
Which is great. But now you're also not making nearly as much because you have to like severely discount yourself. Oh, this is $100 course. You have to give it away for $13, $9.99. And trust me, as the guy who buys a lot of $9.99 courses, just to support other authors and creators. But at least now they're looking at that's their $9.99 of profit. But after you've spent countless hours building these websites, promos, branding, you're taking a real hit here. And especially when You look at these pay schedules quarterly. That's my royalty. I don't teach through Pluralsight, but it's a similar site. Quarterly, that's fine. Monthly, that'd be a little bit nicer, but at the same time, it would be so small at that point. It would just get zapped up by Netflix, Hulu, and paying all my bills, right? Uh,
Yeah.
Teachable, that's your choice. You choose daily, monthly. Udemy, again, every kind of monthly, or I think there's an opt-in per transaction, but then there's a higher processing fee. And as you're
Yeah.
seeing here, the cost versus value really starts to dwindle when you do build it on your own. And then, again, what as you theft from Udemy, how do you protect yourself from that? Oh, well, use LinkedIn or these other branded sites, Pluralsight, because then people know, oh, why is Pluralsight content on Udemy? Somebody stole it. Well, then you have a case. But when it gets stolen from Udemy and gets put on T&W share or all these other places that are just kind of stack skill share,
Yeah.
.co.uk or whatever. There's almost nothing you can do too, because they're either they've hijacked it and stole it, and you can apply to them, and then they might remove it, but then 3 weeks later somebody else will upload it.
Right. And that's like every possible solution for a lot of this stuff. Like it introduces another problem or another avenue that you have to think about. And so, yeah, like it's a juggling act, right? But after looking at a lot of this and discussing it with people, I decided to self-host. Now, when I say that I'm self-hosting, I mean that I have a developer making my website for me from the ground up. The APIs, the backend, the front end, like mine. It's totally not dependent on anything else. So the most that I have to deal with is, the basic processing fee for using the vendor to take payments, and then I pay for yearly hosting, and that's that, right? I can have it exactly as I want. It is set in that way. But I'm not having to do profit shares. I'm not having to worry about views, popularity, or promos. I don't have to do any of that. I set it to what I want, and I may pay a little bit more upfront, but then I have full control over my content. And to me, that's really important, that I have control while also not bleeding, all this other money because X, Y, and Z.
Well, it's his business decision, right?
Yeah,
How
it's
do you stay in business? You make money, you
yeah,
retain money.
yeah. You have to. All right. So when you are thinking about this, you want to look at like how you're actually giving your content to students, right? Are you going to have like a learning management system? Are you going to put it on GitHub? Are you going to, have things that are just linked off of your main site? Are you recording? Are you doing live training? Are you doing like a hybrid kind of a thing? If you're doing it live, how are you interacting with your students? One of the biggest things that I wanted was the ability to actually interact with my students. And it turns out it's kind of hard to do that on a lot of platforms. You have things like Twitch, but Twitch has a sizable delay in the video to the chat. So when people are asking questions, I may not see it for a good 15 to 30 seconds. And then, so I've got that delay going. And then the video quality and the audio quality get downgraded. And it's like that for Twitch. It's like that for Big Blue Button. It's like that for, it can be to an extent Zoom, and so there are a lot of different things that you have to think about when you want to interact, because sometimes you just have people typing at you, but you want to hear them. Like I want to hear them. So right now, my courses I teach over Discord because I can fit everybody into a classroom. People can talk, they can ask questions when they need to, they can chat amongst themselves while I'm teaching. Like, there's a really good balance. And although that may not be the permanent solution, it's something to consider when you're figuring out how you want to do these sorts of things, right?
I mean, there's, yeah, like you said, Discord. Eventually, you could build a Jitsi server with streaming and the classroom and a whiteboard and ask questions. But again, now you're talking additional expenses, additional content, additional things. And again, your goal here as a teacher is to teach. As a business person, is to make money. So
Yep.
the less time you spend teaching, making money, the more money you're putting out, and ultimately it becomes this thing, like, in the back of everyone's head. You're like, I'm doing this for the good, I'm doing this for the children, I'm doing this for the students, but it's getting really hard to do this. I'm losing money. And then by the time you, like you said, you build all this out, and then you get to the point where you're like, what do I do? And then you start building it, like, and then you move to the next phase. I like this phase right here, the your environment and demo gods. As if BSD were around, I've been at conferences with him before, and I'll be like, demo gods, and right before he goes up, and he just cracks up laughing, because and I want everybody to think about it. Anytime you go to give a demo god,
You
like, seriously,
pray to the demo gods.
pray to them, because it can go horribly wrong. And trust me, doing live streams instead of curated content, and nothing wrong with either way, right? As you said, with Twitch, I had to beat certain numbers. I had to get out there. I had to get subscribers. I had to get a certain number of followers, and then I became a associate or whatever, Twitch, not partner, it's some intermediate level. Now I can stream at 1080p, but my screen downstairs is 4K. My screen here is 2K. And then now I'm trying to fit a Kali window into a 1080p screen. And then again, most people are probably watching from this little thing called a cell phone. And they're, it's got a high resolution, but the quality's lowered anyway because it's coming through, you're throttled. And then you go multiple times with the demo gods, where I'm just in the middle of a box. If I downloaded the VM from Bolton Hub and I was doing it, the VM would crash or something would go awry. My system could crash. How do you recover from that when you're streaming? I've seen streamers have a dedicated streaming box. They pump out a $1,600 to $2,200 box that sits there. They power it on. They have OBS, and it takes it from their other gaming box, another $1,600-$1,200 box. Man, oh my God, we're talking. This is getting expensive. And as a hacker, I'm like, I just need to show my screen and do this, and who cares? From again, this is my layman's perspective. I didn't go the full business route. I've produced content and courses. Again, they're curated, like you said, management. Somebody else is really making the money off of it. I get a little bit of things, and then now, after talking to you about all this and seeing your struggles and kind of sharing the experience about it, you get to the point where the demo gods are here, and you're trying to put things together. And I think it's important that you test things. It's important that you have, again, do you have that box next to the box, and that other box is fully updated? You reboot it before every stream, and you bring it up, and then you get on your gamer box. And that's why you've seen people gaming and then lights out. Gaming,
Yep.
pictures gone, and they're just staring at the camera like
Yeah. Yeah. Every time there's, and we're gonna get to that here in just a few slides. But yeah, it's really there's so much that goes into it, and there's so many problems that can arise, right? But when you're teaching a lot of people something that they've never really done before, there is a high probability that something is going to go wrong. All right. And that's why, when I was initially doing this, like, I'm teaching malware analysis. So I have live malware. It's not the same as like a red team kind of a thing, or if you're doing like OffSec training or CTFs, where if you hit a wrong command, it's like, oh, well, this didn't work. But for malware, if you hit a wrong command, hey, you just infected your system.
see.
Whoopsie. And you may or may, like, Windows Defender may or may not see it. It's gotten markedly better, but there are, what, on average 10,000 new malware variants a day minimum. we obviously haven't solved security. So there's a high likelihood that something is going to infect your system, and we don't want that. So my initial thing was to set up a base image and have everyone download it and build their own lab. Well, the problem with that is that the base Flare image on a Windows installation is about 80 gigabytes. So that's huge. And I can't reasonably expect everyone to download that. Having the students do it, somebody may not be comfortable with that at the outset. They may misconfigure something. They may, you've got different versions of things. There's so many different variables, and you don't want to spend your class helping to troubleshoot other people's systems. So it's difficult to go into it and do that. So what I ended up doing was going through the cloud. I was like, I want to teach people and I want to streamline it as much as possible. So I looked at a few different factors between AWS and Microsoft Azure, which was kicked over to me by somebody actually from Dead PixelSec. And there's a market difference in what you can do on each platform and how easy it is. For instance, Azure, I really like it because Azure Labs, they put out things for hackathons and they encourage that. But AWS doesn't like that. And actually, they have a policy where you can't run malware on them on any virtual machine, which, like I said, the irony burns as somebody who does threat intel and malware analysis, because my God, there's so much malware out there that comes from AWS. The nice thing about Azure is you pay as you go. So you only pay for what uptime is used. At this point, I think I've paid out maybe on average about $150 a month. And I give each of my 30 registered students 20 hours of time outside of class. So 2 hours a week for 9 weeks, it's 18 hours plus, so you've got basically 38 hours of time that could be used. And the maximum that I'll pay for that is about $550 to $600. So that's really nice. Whereas with AWS, you have to buy all the credits up front and you may not use that time. And then, there's a lot of things. It's also much harder to use and set up. Not to say that I haven't had my issues with Azure. And if there's anybody out there that knows Azure networking with labs, I will pay you money to help me because I've had an issue outstanding for several months now that I cannot get rectified.
We'll call it Malware Mobius's intern.
Yeah, right.
There you go. Or Microsoft Mobius, as we're talking about in chat right now.
Yeah. So I wanted to streamline it. And that's what I've done largely. There's still hiccups, but it's much simpler than the alternatives. All right. The next thing to talk about is, actually putting yourself on camera and teaching, right? So one of the things that people, I think there's a lot of people that don't think about this. Death by PowerPoint is awful. Death by monotone screen cap is worse. I have tried to learn so many things from multiple sites, and it's just somebody very monotone with recording keystrokes and screen caps, and it's hard. It's really hard. So what I wanted to aim to do was to have, like, hey, we're going to have a conversation about this. Like, I want to teach you and I want to show you why this is cool. I want to show you why you might want to do this. And I want to do it in a way that I don't look awful and I don't sound awful and all of these things. So, again, for my office, which you can't see a whole lot of, my walls here, I have foam that I got off of Amazon for like $20. You get a 12 pack, something like that.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, you keep it really simple. It's super easy to set up. Use some command strips, doesn't even require nails, and it deadens the sound. So now you don't echo. You get a couple of flex lights. so that you have proper lighting and you're not washed out or, super dark. Because most of us are just always in front of a computer. So we're kind of pale by nature. You just, you want to, yeah, you want to look decent, you want to sound decent, and you want people to want to pay attention to you. That's key. Because if you're just monotone screen cap, nobody's going to care. It's hard to get through. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to attack anyone out there if you've done that. But for me, I want to feel engaged, right? So I feel like that's rather important. And Joe, you agree with me that
absolutely
it's a good thing to do.
Again, there's ways to teach, and I'm learning more myself every day. I recently watched something with some of the biggest webcasters, and they started turning their cameras off, so that way they're not worried about what they're looking like. Just like weird little things that as you set up, you do those things, and then you learn, maybe I'll turn the camera off today, and that way I'm not worried about what I'm doing, how I'm looking, going from there. And there's a bunch of that stuff. So teaching hits different. Oh, we gotta roll a little bit faster movies.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're running out of time.
This is the how is just as important as the why, more so as it says. So I think we talked about this really quickly. Everybody learns differently. Everybody teaches differently. Everybody teaches who learns differently to learn to teach someone differently. And when our conversation with this was like, well, if you're a visual teacher, if you're a storyteller, I'm a big visual storyteller. And I try to teach with that, so that way it's somebody remembers it later.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and it's you may have a vision for how you want to provide your content, but there are times where I've been like, oh, I thought this was really great, and somebody's like, this was actually bad. This was bad. You can fix it, but it's bad. So keep in mind that you're going to have to adapt to how you teach, and learning how to teach is very important. A lot of us are not the best at teaching, and sometimes you have to break it down in different ways. You use different analogies, but just know, like, your first time teaching, probably going to suck. You're going to suck.
Absolutely,
it's okay.
And I don't know if I told you this, but something I've heard recently is, well, I learned it this way. Why can't you? Oh God! Every time I hear that, every time I think about that now, like, no, I learned it this way. I'm going to teach you in a way that, as a teacher, the best way that I can.
Yes.
So that way you retain the knowledge.
Yes. Right. Another big thing, and this has been, I think, my most well-received module. Like, I'm teaching malware analysis, right? But I have a module specifically dedicated to imposter syndrome and how it's okay to feel like you don't know everything, right? It's okay to feel like you're going to feel overwhelmed. You're going to feel like you don't know enough. You're going to feel all of these things, and it's okay, because every one of us has felt like that at some point when we are learning, when we are teaching. You feel like you don't know enough. And for very complex topics, I think that it's important to focus on mental health and your emotional outlook at things, because it can be really overwhelming. And if it's too much, so people are just going to drop. Yep. Because they're going to be like, I have to Google all this stuff, and I feel like if that's all I'm doing, I'm not really learning anything. So one of the first things I say is, you're going to spend half your time Googling. Like, even as a professional, you're going to Google everything all the time. You can't know everything, and that's okay. Talk about your failures. Like, talk about these things.
When I jumped in the day you were giving this talk, both times now, it seems like, I love it because, from a teacher perspective, from a mentor perspective, and from somebody who is popular on social media or and things like that, I tell people all the time, like, hey, I feel that way too. I have an era of confidence. I do a thing, but ultimately, it's because I've learned to cast it aside and realize that I'm going to suffer and realize that I'm going to have problems, and it's normal, and it's okay.
Yeah. This is what I try to tell people, is that it's going to be hard, and you're going to feel like you don't know anything. Keep going. You're going to get better.
You have no choice to if you keep going. If you stop, you're not going to.
Yeah, you'll never get anywhere. And if it's not for you, that's fine. But if you think that you might enjoy it, if you think that you might get into it, like, it's gonna suck. Keep going. You will get better. You will feel better. Okay. When it comes to doing this kind of stuff, like, keep doing it. Right? Repetition is key. That goes for students and teachers. When you're teaching things, like, just go over it. Right? If somebody gives you feedback, like they didn't feel like the content was good, or they didn't know how to focus, or they couldn't understand, like, take that and understand, like, for me, I had a student tell me, like, I don't feel like I'm getting this because I'm a very goal-oriented person, and I don't think that you're setting your goals correctly for this, and this. And I said, you know what, that's on me. That's my bad. I'm sorry that I didn't think about that. So I'm going to try to change that going forward. But don't be afraid to try new things. Don't be afraid to mess with your formula, right? You're going to have stuff fail. You're going to have stuff break. Roll through it. My first class, I had a point where my students wanted me to have a apology jar instead of a swear jar, because I was apologizing so much for things not going right. It's gonna fail.
Yep.
Just go with it. Just go with it.
And he stopped apologizing so much by the second time.
I have. I've dramatically been like, well, things happen. We're just gonna roll with it. All right.
We're at the tail end here. I've been paying attention to chat. I haven't seen many questions. I'm really happy to be part of seeing what Mobius has done, taking malware and teaching it in a way that I see it sticking with people. I see people questioning. I'm proud to say that as a teaching peer, I think you're doing well. I think you're doing amazing.
Thank you.
Come find us at our Twitter handles, DeadPixelSec server. Again, discord.gg/deadpixelsec. I don't know if Mobius has a short URL yet. We'll get in there.
Not yet. I'll work on it. No.
And shoot him an invite. Ask for get into his classes. Come learn. From me to the stream, to the chat. Thank you, Mobius. Thank you for letting me co-present with you, and I'm glad I could help you out with your first presentation.
Thank you.
And I'm a fan of what you're doing.
I really appreciate that. And yeah, this is for those that don't know, this is my very first con talk. And thank you, Blind Hacker, for having taken me under your wing and taught me things that and introduced me to a phenomenal community, which has helped me out greatly with this endeavor. And for anybody, if you're interested, like, please hit me up, hit up Blinds, like, ask questions, get into it. Right?
Everybody should be teaching something. Come on, we can all do it better together, right?
Everyone knows something you don't.
One of my favorite sayings.
Yeah. So with that, thank you so much. And I hope you enjoy the rest of con.